Last Sunday at Survivor Series was the final farewell, for now, of The Undertaker. After a 30-year career, debuting at the Survivor Series in 1990, he put a nice bow on it at Survivor Series here in 2020, and he walked off for what they all said would be the final time. Godfather is one of Undertaker's best friends. They met before they even came to WWE. They met working together in Memphis. He was there last Sunday. He gave an interview to Sports Illustrated and said that when he heard about the farewell, he immediately texted The Undertaker and said, "Big dog, you done?" And he said, "Bear, I'm done." He calls him Bear. That's Undertaker's nickname for Godfather. He says, "Bear, I'm done." And Godfather said, now I've heard him say this before, but they just wouldn't let him go. This time, he said he's done. He goes, I don't know what Vince is going to throw at him down the river, but I think he's done. And they did a BSK reunion, the Bone Street Crew, the night before Survivor Series. It was invitation only at the hotel bar, whiskey and beer, no food, just whiskey and beer. And it was all the usual members of if you've seen any of those BSK photos, it was pretty much everybody except Yokozuna. Yokozuna is the only one who's no longer with us. But it was Undertaker, it was Godfather, Savio Vega, Rikishi, the Godwins. And I think I spot it was Booker T popped up there and Tim White as well, referee Tim White. In fact, Godfather said it was like old times. They had to put Tim White to bed that night. So if this really is the end, right? Because that's what everybody is talking about as far as the big question coming out of this. Is this really the end? Because we've thought it might be the end before, and Undertaker has talked about how he thought it was the end here, and then he came back, and then he was ready to hang it up here, and Vince McMahon convinced him to come back. I mean, this is a story as old as the beginning of time. That Vince McMahon wants to bring The Undertaker back for one more match, whether it's at WrestleMania or Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of Saudi Arabia shows left on that contract. Never say never. But if we look at this as really being the end of The Undertaker, one of the most incredible careers in history. 30 years spent with one company, pretty much on top his entire run there. Almost from the very beginning. Working with multi-generations of talent, from Hogan and Flair to Shelton Benjamin and Ken Kennedy to Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt. Tweaking and evolving his character along the way from having some of the worst WrestleMania matches to some of the very best WrestleMania matches of all time. He has run the gamut. He somehow got better. His matches got better as he got older and more beat up and his career extended further and further. WWE had all of these special guests show up at Survivor Series, and they gave everybody an entrance. So everybody got to come do that long walk down the aisle, and they're all congregating in the ring. And I saw one meme, I actually laughed out loud. Kane was the last one to come out, right? So they had everybody, all the BSK guys, and then Ric Flair was out there, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Jeff Hardy, all of these special guests here to celebrate The Undertaker's career. And Kane came out in his Kane attire, and he had the mask on and the wig and everything. And Kane, who looked like he would rather be, I don't know, he had this look on his face like he just didn't want to be there. But the meme was, Kane gets in the ring and he's almost like standing in the corner by himself. And you got this overhead shot of everybody else in the ring. And they're all standing together and they're not distancing and they have no masks. And Kane is the only one who appears to be somewhat distancing and he's got a mask on. And I thought, you know what, that's pretty clever. And it's true. And it is true. Although I hope and assume everybody was tested, especially because you have all these old people in there. We don't want anything to happen to the legends, right? We've already lost enough legends. We don't need to lose them. We don't need to lose more of them because WWE decided to fly them in and not make sure they were tested. But Kane was the only one wearing a mask. But then they disappeared. They had a video package for The Undertaker, and then he made his big entrance. Vince McMahon was there to introduce him, and everybody was gone. And I just thought, what a waste. How stupid. How stupid was that? At least have them like outside the ring standing in the background or something, you know, clapping and applauding, and you kind of see them back there. Actually, my idea, which I would have loved to see them do this, would have been to have them on stage. I mean, I guess they wanted them all maybe to have an entrance, but you have them all on stage and it's almost like the parting of the Red Sea. and out comes the Undertaker, and he's got all of his colleagues and friends and rivals on either side of him as he walks to the ring, and again as he walks to the back for the final time. What a shot that would have been. What a great parting shot that would have been. If you've got the Undertaker making that one last walk down the aisle, he does that little look back and puts the fist up in the air and everything. But then on either side of him, you've got all these legends, all these people that he's worked with over the years as he walks off of the fight, or smoke just envelops the entire shot. They could have done some pretty cool stuff with that, and instead they just vanished. It was like a magic trick. They all just disappeared. But Vince McMahon. We got to talk about Vince McMahon's appearance a little bit here. And I talked about this on the Dynamite stream. At the end of the Dynamite stream, I was taking Q&A from people, and somebody asked me about it, and I ended up going on a little rant about it. But Vince McMahon was there, and he introduced The Undertaker, and he looked awful. But Vince McMahon is 75 years old. But when I say awful, I mean this is a guy who he looked weird. This is a guy, I don't know what was going on with his eyebrows and his face. He's like Botoxed his face to death. He did not look well. And I think it's just also striking because we also remember the Vince McMahon, this gregarious Vince McMahon character that we're so used to seeing for so many years on TV. And it kind of like reality hits you in the face that, yeah, Father Time is a bitch and everybody gets old. Look at Michael Buffer last night. Michael Buffer was doing the ring announcing for the boxing thing. And there were people saying, oh my God, he looks old. Michael Buffer's like 80 years old. And you forget sometimes. When we saw Michael Buffer doing the intros on WCW pay-per-views back in the day, I mean, come on, it was 25 years ago. So people get older and they age, and that's what happens. But Vince in particular, he doesn't look right. But as I'm looking at him, and what an old man he has become, it really is very striking to think about all the stories we hear about how hands-on and engaged he is in the creative process still. Like Vince McMahon is the chairman and the CEO of the company, right? He's the chairman of the board, and he oversees all of the important business decisions, and nothing is decided upon or done, I'm sure, without the input and approval of Vince McMahon, because it's his company. At the end of the day, it is still his company. And if Vince McMahon was in a behind-the-scenes business role, and he was on the conference calls with the investors and everything, that to me is an appropriate place for him to be. I question how appropriate it is, just watching these fucking shows, how appropriate it is to have a 75-year-old man be the person who is the sole party responsible for the creative vision of this company. He is the showrunner for all of the television shows. He is the driving creative force in this company. The stories, it happened again this week with SmackDown, where he's taking work that other people are doing. People that he pays probably pretty good money to write the shows and script the shows, and he is taking their work and he is blowing it up on a weekly basis, it seems like, to write the show in the voice and in the way that he wants to see it written. And the people who work there, I'm sure, are writing stuff that they're trying to please him. They're trying to write stuff that they think he's going to like. Because he is still the end-all, be-all when it comes to creative in this company. How healthy is it to have a product like this? This is a guy who has a roster full of young, hungry talent in their 20s and their 30s. The man is 75 years old. So is it any wonder that we see and hear about all these creative issues and we see how awful the product can be sometimes? Is it any wonder? It really hit me when I was looking at him standing out there and I said, this is the creative force in this company? It is still resting in the hands of this 75-year-old, shell of what he used to be? That really drove it home for me. I mean, in a way, you kind of respect how hands-on he still is. Think Dean Ambrose, right? John Moxley is the one who said he's going to die in that chair. He is convinced that Vince McMahon, he works harder than everybody else. Nobody is denying his work ethic. And he probably, he expects the same from all of the people who work for him, which makes him, a very demanding boss. Respect the work ethic and respect the hustle. But Moxley is 100% correct when he says that Vince McMahon, when he's sitting there with that headset on at the gorilla position at every single show, every single taping, he's going to die in that chair. You're going to have to pry him out of that chair. It's one thing to respect the hustle and the work ethic. It's another to say, you know what, is he actually doing great damage to the company? And the answer is yes, he is. And that's very sad. But I don't know how you fix that, because it's his company. And if he doesn't want to leave, then he's not going to leave. If he doesn't want to leave that role, he's not going to leave that role. But I do think the product suffers because of it.